everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to show you how to make the shimmer bangle. It is made using chenille stitch, and the stitch is simple enough that I am going to show you how to make it and then how to turn it into this bangle. So if this looks like an interesting project to you, come and join me as we get our supplies together. For today's project, you're going to need two different colors of 8/0 seed beads, and you'll need about 7 grams of each. I have a 7-inch wrist, which I think is pretty average, and so that's how much I needed for mine. You might need more or less and need to adjust that if your wrist is a different size. And then you'll also need some fire polish beads. I needed about 6 strands, and each strand has about 50 beads in it. Then you will also need a beading needle. I'm using my trusty size 11 tulip needle, and some beading thread. I am using, get it right here, Nozue Sonoko, the beige color. I like to use this a lot with gold. It just really disappears. And the other thing that I like about this is that it has a little stretch in it. So when I'm making a bangle, that's really helpful because, of course, you've got to always try and get the bracelet, the bangle, over your knuckles. The other thing that you're going to need is some paracord. This is 550 paracord, and I just picked a neutral color. And I put this inside the tube of the bangle, and it helps to provide just a little structure so that the bangle doesn't flatten, especially, you know, like when you have your wrist down. That's really tends to flatten it. And then also flattens just over time. So this gives it a little structure on the inside, but it's still very soft and flexible. So today I am going to be using for my gold beads a rose gold. It's a rose gold permanent galvanized bead by Toho. And then these are also Japanese beads. I'm not sure what kind, but they're size 8 metallic silver rounds. And then for my fire polished beads, I'm using crystal copper rainbow. And now I think we are all ready to begin. Okay. There are only 2 rounds for this pattern. You just keep doing it over and over and over again, which is part of what makes the stitch not too difficult to learn. So for this first round, it's going to be the seed bead round. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up an A bead and a B bead, and we're going to do that 4 times. So here's number 2, here's number 3, and here's number 4. So we've got a total of 8 beads. Now I'm going to bring that down close to the end. But be sure and hold on to it. And now we're going to tie a knot. I know people are sometimes afraid to put knots in their beadwork because they're afraid it will fill up the hole in the beadwork. But since we are using our smallest bead as an 8/0, and we're not going through the bead that many times, we're going to have plenty of room. So there's half hitch, and I'm going to do that again. And there you go. Now you want your knot, your circle here to be fairly tight, but don't make your knot so tight that you aren't able to get into the other beads. Okay, so now I am going to go through another 2 beads and then give a little tug, and that will pull the knot in between. Alright, this doesn't look like much, but it's going to become something in the next round. Okay, so that was our seed bead round. So our next round is going to be our fire polish round. So I'm coming out right here. So I'm going to pick up a fire polished bead, and I'm going to go into the very next bead. So I'm putting it actually in between these two beads. I'm going to go into that bead and then through the bead next to it. So I'm going through two beads, keeping my finger on top of the beadwork. Hold everything in place. Now I'm just going to repeat that 3 times. I'm between these two beads, so I'm going to pick up a fire polished bead, and I'm going to go into the next bead, the very next one, and then I'm going to go through the bead next to it. So I'm going through 2 beads. These fire polished beads we're putting on now may look a little cattywampus, but don't worry, because the subsequent rounds will always pull them into place. Alright, so I've got 2 fire polish. Now I'm going to pick up my third. I'm going to enter the very next bead. I'm going to go through it. And the bead after that, for a total of 2 seed beads. Alright, so now I have 3 fire polish beads, so this is my last one. So I'm going to go in between these 2 beads, and I'm going to go through the next 2, and that completes the round. Now I need to step up, and I'm going to do that by going through this very next bead, which is the fire polished bead. Okay, so now we're in our third round. Our first round was that first circle, sort of seed beads. Then the second round was fire polished beads. So now we're going to our third round, so that will again be seed beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 of the seed beads, an A and a B, and all I'm going to do is go from fire polish bead to fire polish bead all the way around. So I'm coming out of this fire polish, and I'm going to go into the next one. Coming out of this fire polished, so I'm going to pick up 2 more seed beads, an A and a B, and I'm going to go into the next fire polished. This one's twisted a little bit. I'm just going to untwist it first. Okay, I am coming, let me get my tail thread out of the way. I am coming out of this fire polished bead, and I'm going to go into this one. So I'm going to pick up an A and a B, go in through that next fire polished bead. Now it's still not looking very good here, but that is about to all change. So I'm coming out of this fire polished, I'm going to pick up an A and a B, and I'm going to go through the next fire polished bead. And it's at this point that we start turning our flat beadwork into something round. So you're going to just gently kind of squeeze on the sides and give little tugs, and that's going to start encouraging your work to cup. It's not going to really be a tube yet, but it is going to start cupping. Like that. Okay, so now we are going to go from a seed bead round to a fire polished round. So we're going to do our step up by going through the very next seed bead, just one. Okay, so now we are going to pick up a fire polished bead. We are going to go in through the very next seed bead, so we're splitting this pair. We're going to completely ignore that fire polish that's from a previous round, and we're just going to go into the next seed bead. Just keep, as you go, keep sort of cupping it and encouraging it to make a tube. Alright, so now we are between these two seed beads. So we're going to pick up a fire polished bead. We are going to insert it in that next seed bead, and then we're going to skip that fire polished bead and go through the next seed bead. Cup a little bit more, pick up another fire polish. This is our third one, so we'll have one more after this for this round. Pick up the fire polished, go into the very next seed bead, skip that fire polish from the previous round, and go in through the next seed bead. Keep cupping it. Okay, then we're going to pick up a fire polished bead. We're going to skip this fire polish down there, and we're going to go through this seed bead and the next one. And then give it a tug. Okay, now we are going to step up through the very next bead, which is the fire polish bead. So we just finished doing a round of fire polish beads, so now we're going to do a round of seed beads. We're going to pick up an A and a B, and we're going to go into the next fire polish bead. So this is our first of this round. Pick up an A and a B, and go in through the next fire polished bead. Going to pick up an A and a bead, go in through the next fire polished bead. Okay, so now we've done 3, so we're on the last one for this round. An A, B, and we're going to go through the next fire polish. Okay, now we are ready for our next round, and it's starting to look a little bit more like a tube. So to step up, we're going to go through the very next bead. Now we're going to be doing a fire polish round. So we are splitting our A and our B and going in between them with a fire polish. Okay, so we came out of A, now we're going to go in B. We're going to skip that next fire polish that's from the previous round and then just go in through the first seed bead of the next pair. That's our first one. Now we're going to pick up our second fire polish bead. I know these guys have holes somewhere in them. There's one. So I am between an A and a B. I'm going to go in through the B, skip that fire polish from the previous round, and go through the next A. Now we put in 2 fire polish beads. Pick up the third, go in through the B, and then in through the A of the next set. And each time we're just kind of pulling it snug a little bit and just continuing to try and form it into a tube, which will get easier by the by the round. Alright, so now we are picking up our fourth fire polish bead. I'm going to go through our B bead, skip the fire polish from the previous round, and go through the next A. Now I want to show you something here. I'm going to step up by going through the next fire polish. The only thing that can be a little bit difficult is telling which beads are in your current round and which are in the previous round. So if you can keep that straight, you're going to be fine. It's a little difficult because what you're seeing on your screen is two-dimensional. So I'm going to kind of try and explain it to you and see if I can move things around to show you. When you do the round that is fire polished, the fire polished beads end up on top, almost like little crowns. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And if I turn this sideways, still not a lot to hold on to here, but I hope you can see a little bit that those are higher than the beads in between. So there's a fire polished here, and then a dip, and then it goes up to the fire polish, a dip, up. Okay, so that's how you can tell you're in, that you have finished the 4 in this round. Now let's look at the next round as we go through it, and make sure that, show you kind of how you can make sure that you're working with the beads that are in the current round. Alright, so I have the 4 fire polishes, and this round's actually a little easier, I think, in that sense, because you really do have those fire polishes sitting on top, kind of like points on a crown. So all you have to do is pick up your A and your B, and you're just going to go from point to point, so coming out of this fire polish, going into the next one. Give it a little tug. Alright, number 2, picking up an A and a B. I'm going from this fire polish into the next one. Now we're going to pick up our third sequence, an A and a B. And I'm going to go from this fire polish into the next one. You can see these rounds go very fast, since there's really basically 4 stitches to the round. Alright, now I've done 3 of the sequences of A and B, so now I'm going to do the 4th one, going from this fire polish and into the next one. An A and a B. Go through that fire polish. Give it a little tug, and now we're developing a nice little tube here. Still not a lot to hold on to, but we've got our tail thread. Alright, now we're going to do our step up, because our next round is going to be our fire polish round. So this is the round where we're going to put a fire polish between the 2 seed beads. So we're going to go through our A bead, and pick up a fire polish. And if there's anywhere that I got lost a little bit when I was first doing this, if you're not paying attention, is you can sometimes think that this fire polish that's down from the previous row is one you're using in this row, because these really, there isn't that definite up and down kind of dip as for the others. The other round. So just be kind of conscious of that this is where you're adding fire polish. So you're not going to be going through any fire polish. You're only going to be going through seed beads. So I'm splitting this pair. I'm coming out of the first one and I'm going into the second one. Now I'm not going to go through this fire polish, because remember, we're not going through any in this round. We're only going through seed beads. So that means I ignore that one, from the previous round, and I go through the A next to it. Same thing again, pick up a fire polish, go through the B. Now this time I'm not going to go all the way through. I'm just going to go straight across. Once you've practiced it a few times, this will probably be pretty natural. You go through B here, skip over the fire polish, go through the next A. And you can do that all in one step a lot of the time. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes the beads are just the way they're sitting. You can't do that. But a lot of times you can, which helps make it go a little faster. Coming out of A, pick up my fire polish, go through my B, skip over that fire polish from the previous round, and go through the A of the next set. Okay, now I'm going to take a look here, and I see that once again I have these points. And so I can count those, 1, 2, 3. So now I know I'm doing my last fire polish bead of this round. So I'm going to go into my B, cross over, and go into through the A. Now in this case, see that fire polish is sticking up a little bit too much. I can't quite get into that next one all in one fell swoop. So I'm just going to do it here. I'm going to go through it singly, and then I'm going to go up through, step up, and I'm going to step up by going through that fire polish bead. Okay, now we definitely have a tubular shape going on here. I'm going to do one more round, and then I'll go off camera and make my tube. So right now I'm going to pick up an A and a B, go through the next fire polish, pick up an A and a B, go through the next fire polish, pick up an A and a B, go through the next fire polish. And you can probably see here that after most every stitch I kind of turn the beadwork a little bit and give it a little tug. It really helps if you keep it snug, because this is pretty open beadwork. You can see that it's kind of a diamond or X shapes, and it's pretty open. So if you don't keep your tension pretty good, you're gonna run into problems. It's not going to be you know, tight and cohesive. All right, so now I'm going to pick up an A and a B, and I'm going to go through the next fire polish, and I can see that I am at the end, because now all of the none of the fire polishes are sticking up. So I know I'm at the end of my round. So now I'm going to step up by going through that next A bead. Okay, before I go off camera to finish this, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to need in terms of length. Now, I was telling you that I have a pretty average 7-inch wrist, but you need more than 7 inches, of course, because you have to go over your knuckles. This is the widest part. And so for me, I know that I need about 9 inches to be able to go over my knuckles. So what I'm going to suggest is that you keep trying it on as you start getting close. You know, measure it out. If it's getting close, try pulling it around your wrist and see if you think you have enough. And we'll talk a little bit about that more once I can show you when I finish this beadwork. Here I am. I have gotten myself a piece long enough, and so now I'm going to make sure by putting it over my knuckles and kind of pulling it together, and it's a little hard to show, awkward to show this on screen, but you can see that I'm kind of, it's fitting together. So all the way around, going over my knuckles, and then I'm able to make it meet in the middle. So now I am ready to stuff it with paracord. Now this is, I said to use a piece that's just a little bit shorter, mostly because this stuff is stretchy, and if you don't get a piece that's a little shorter, it'll end up being too long. So you can see, kind of hear what I did. What happens once you cut paracord is you have these fibers from the inside that just keep coming out like that one just did. So what I did on this end is I put a lighter to it and just kind of melted everything, and that's going to really help in us inserting it. And then here I have the paracord, and I have attached some heavy 20-pound fire line with a big needle. It doesn't have to be 20-pound, I just happen to have a grab that. A needle with a large hole. And so I am going up through the center of the beadwork. And you know, this, if you look at, there's a large, there are large holes in it because it's kind of almost like a netting. So I'm just going to go in and out of those holes. I'm going to help it get started down here, push it in, and then pull down. Now I'm going to go back in through this hole and go down some more and come out. You just have to make sure that you're only in the hole, that you haven't snagged anywhere where your needle and thread's gone. And then just pull it down again and just keep doing that until you get down to the end. This is what, for me, has been the fastest way to do it. I've tried just sticking it through kind of on its own, and it'll go part way, but then it seems to get stuck, and I'm not able to get it to go down any further. So for me, this was just a pretty easy way to get it done. Okay, so I'm going back in through the same hole, go down, come out, and pull. I'm getting close to the end. I'm going to go back in, down as far as I can, back up, pull. And each time I kind of pull on the end of this to make sure that it is, the paracord is getting all the way in. Almost there. All right, last time. And now I'm going to come out the very end, or rather the very beginning of the beadwork. Okay, so there's the other end. Now I'm going to just cut this off. And bring my second side up. Now I'm going to go back to my beading thread. And to close it, I just lay it very straight, because I don't want it twisted one way or the other. We want it to be straight. And I'm going to pull on this till I've got it tight. Now the idea of closing it off is that we're going to go back and forth. So what I want to do first is make sure that this is nice and closed off tightly like this end is. Oh, one thing I want to tell you, you need to have the opposite rows on the two ends. So this end is a seed bead round. This is a fire polish round. And for the two ends to match up right, you need to have that. They can't both be seed bead or both be fire polish, or they won't fit together right. This way it's going to be really seamless. You're not going to be able to even tell where it ends. So what I'm going to do now is I am just going to go through everything on the end. So I'm going to go through actually what would be the last two rounds, because it's going to be both the fire polish and the seed beads. So there I got snagged a fire polish, and now I'm going to, I'm not going to be able to go any further, so I'm just going to pull on that. Now I'm going to go through two of the seed bead and the next fire polish. And there's seed bead, and then fire polish. I can't quite get it through the fire polish. Okay, so I'm going to start again with the fire polish, seed bead, seed bead, seed bead, and then up through fire polish again. And now seed bead, and fire polish. Doesn't want to go through that last fire polish, so I'll do that separately. Okay, and then I'm going to pull that snug. Alright, so there you can see it's just kind of holding together a little better since I've reinforced that. So now I'm going to have these two ends face each other. If you notice the rows, you have they're offset. So you have seed fire polish here, and then you have two here, and then one here and two here. Well, we're going to try and get this somewhat the same here. So I'm coming out of, I'm going to turn this around, that my thread is on the outside here. And so we've got fire polish here, seed beads here, and then fire polish up here. That's the way the rest of it looks, so that's how I want to have it lined up down here. So I'm coming out of a fire polish here, and I'm going to go through the two seed beads next to it. I'm going to turn it a little. I'm going to go through the next fire polish on this side, and then I'm going to go down through the next two seed beads. Turn it a little more. And I'm going to go through the next fire polish on this end. So now I've gone through everything twice, so now I am going to just make a couple knots and weave through some beads, and then it will be done. So there's the shimmer bracelet. It's quite light, which I really like. Sometimes beaded bangles like this can be pretty heavy. I've done a couple where I've actually ended up taking them apart, but this one is not super heavy. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you are able to make a bangle from it if you'd like. If you would like the pattern for this, it is on my Etsy site, which is Joyful Heart Patterns, and I hope to see you again in another video. Thank you.